and welcome back to Thacker's Sunday Hangover with me, James Thacker. It's the second episode in this podcast, and I'm really excited to bring it to you. I just wanted to say before we get things kicked off, I'm really grateful for all the positive comments and feedback that I got from the first one. I'm really overwhelmed, actually. I did not expect at all the level of kind of listens and, fantastic feedback that I got. So I am truly, truly grateful and deeply appreciative of all of that great stuff and the great feedback that I received. So thank you very much. I'm recording this on a Wednesday. So far this week, it's been a hell of a busy one, to be honest. I feel like now that we're working from home, colleagues, clients, and friends, even in family as well, just expect you to be constantly responsive to absolutely everything. I think we're now at the ends of an email, a Skype conversation, a text instantly. And I think now that everyone knows that we've no longer got the commute, it's a hell of a lot busier. So I know that some of you out there will be feeling that. But this podcast will be released on a weekend. And the purpose of the weekend is to relax, maybe get a little bit drunk, avoid the hangover if we can, but also sit back, relax, and hopefully over the next however long we're going to record this for, you'll enjoy yourself. So great to have you. Today, I'm going to address the old saying, it's just a game. It's just a game is a phrase that will be very familiar to anyone that is involved with or loves sport. And I feel like it's a phrase that is said to people who have either just lost or had a negative experience by people that maybe don't understand so much about sport and what it means, in an attempt to calm them down or to make them feel better. And actually, it has the opposite effect. It's incredibly infuriating, and it would actually make me quite a lot angrier. So I'd like to take a little trip down memory lane to tell you about some of my experiences playing sport and even watching sport. And today it's going to be a little bit more of a storyteller mode. So yeah, find somewhere comfy and we'll jump in. I think my first ever experience or memory of playing sport was at a local soccer training development camp. It's something that I absolutely love going to, wearing my fluorescent yellow and blue uniform on a weekly basis. We'd go along, run around pretty headlessly, I can imagine, at the age of 4 or 5. And at the end of every session, they used to give out a player of the match or player of the week, trainer of the week type trophy. And it was very, very sought after. And it was usually given to the same few people each time. And I was never one of those people. But every week I used to sit there cross-legged in the circle with my fingers both crossed behind my back on both hands, wishing that it was me. And more often than not, it wasn't. And I think, to be honest, that's probably no bad thing, even though it probably broke my mum's heart a little bit more each time that she saw that. But it kind of taught me that just because I played, just because I showed up, doesn't mean that I get to win. Apart from when your mum has a word with the coach about how much it's breaking her heart, and then he eventually gives the trophy to you one time, then you kind of get rewarded for turning up. Apart from that, you don't. But that's something that I tend to subscribe to, because I think these days, and a lot of people will be in agreement, that I think kids these days, I'm going to sound really old now, but kids these days, especially at school, will get medals and badges and stickers for competing. And to a degree, yeah, that's great, but is that going to teach you resiliency? Is that going to teach you that in life you don't get medals for second place, third place, even all the way down to bloody 10th place? And for me, it said, right, well, then I need to be the best. I need to be the best if I want to be competing for medals. And I think the first time that I really got a chance to go and compete for medals was when I was playing tag rugby for my local rugby club. One reason why I love rugby as a sport, and something that I think massively endows the sport to people that play it, and I would encourage anyone that's got young children to get their kids involved in rugby, is the fact that it's such a fantastic community sport. I think it's somewhere that you can go along any kids of any shape or size can go and play. So even chubby little James Thacker was able to rock up and fit in somewhere on the rugby pitch and go enjoy yourself. Go try something different. Rugby's a weird game. It has lots of different rules. The training's fantastic because it's not normal. You play lots of different games. It's not just about kicking a ball around or learning the ball skills. It's about teamwork. It's about working for a collective objective. It's great, and I really, ever since I was 8 years old, been absolutely hooked on rugby. The chance to play for medals on the weekend was something that I really relished and something that really brought out the competitive streak in me. And I think again that's something that is so important to develop, is that competitive streak, because without a little bit of emotion, without a little bit of competitiveness, what does that really leave as human beings? Like let's have a bit of competition, let's have a bit of feistiness, let's compete against each other, see who's best. I think it's in our DNA, I think it's in our nature. The experience of getting up every Sunday in very cold England at times, especially in the height of winter, by your dad, who's also the coach, will also build up resiliency. I remember he was a coach for a couple of years before I think then it was taken over by some of the other dads who were a little bit more keen. But I always used to love rugby and being dragged along, even when I'm there, even if the weather's not great. You used to do a mudslide on your belly, or used to jump in the puddles, or do something childish. It presented such fantastic opportunities to meet friends, develop bonds and friendships beyond normal friends, because when you're competing with someone, and I think this does develop as you grow down the years and you compete more to a higher level, when the chips are really down and you depend on one another, that the friendships and the bonds that you make playing sport are genuinely like no other. And I can only kind of say this having played rugby and football to varying levels, but the bonds that you make through that are irreplaceable. And some of the people that I've met through playing sport are people that I know for the rest of my life. I can always call upon, depend on, and they're the people that I always make the analogy that if we were back in the wartime, that they're the people that I want to jump in the trenches with, my teammates. Rugby and sport in general has also given me some fantastic anecdotes and memories, and I'll share one with you now. My mum is a fantastic human being and is extremely caring, sometimes a little bit too much. I remember one time when I was playing rugby, I think it was under 12s, so still young, and quite rightly, mum was worried about me not playing with the gum shield because she wouldn't want me to lose any of my front teeth. But the game was 2 minutes from kickoff. I'd forgotten my gum shield in my locker, and that was quite a long way away. And I wanted to start the game. No one was going to wait for me. So mum was the designated gum shielder go-getterer. And while the game was going on, I think about 10 minutes in, I was on the bottom of a ruck, and between the tangle of legs, I saw mum edging ever closer onto the pitch, gum shield outstretched, as if it was an attempt to pop it right in my mouth in the middle of the game. So I shout, "Get off, please, please get off." Mum then thinks I'm saying that to the pile of bodies that are on top of me. So before she has the chance to haul the boys off me, the play moves on. And I just look at her in absolute disbelief as she's standing 10 metres onto the pitch. My teacher in absolute hysterics. I collect the gum shield. Mum quickly goes red face and runs off of the pitch post haste. It's those kind of memories, though, that we laugh about now, and I really do cherish those memories. It's ones that bring me and my mum closer together. It's something that is so character building as well. Because if you think about my embarrassment that my mum didn't know that you're not supposed to run onto the pitch, then my friends did, in fact, tease me. You'll be surprised to hear. But I'm grateful to have a mum that cares about my front teeth more than I do, and someone that deeply cares about my sport as well, and the fact that I wanted to play. And it develops your bonds with people. My mum and my dad both committed and have committed hundreds and hundreds of hours of traveling, getting me to training, waiting while I'm at training and back. And for that, I'll be forever grateful. And I know that in any sports person's journey, it's not solely down to you. Your support network is just as important. I think it really does pull you closer together with those people. So I think that's why you hear a lot of people, whenever they get awarded for individual credentials in their field, a lot of credit also has to go to your support circles, because without that, there's no way that I could have ever have done anything that I've achieved in rugby, given my short career to this point. I then, at the age of 13, started to develop my craft a little bit more. I think 13 is when you start going through puberty. I had a massive growth spurt, so I was bigger than a lot of the boys, and that led to a bit of a physical advantage on the rugby pitch. But it also kind of started to, give me a little bit of a hint of what I could do. And I started to hone my skills and test my skills against, some of the older lads. And it was kind of, okay, well, actually, how far can I take this? Could I potentially take it to the next level? Which was realised that county level, I was picked up by Hertfordshire when I was 14. And applying your skills practically in a surrounding where your peers are also physically as good as you and from a skill wise as good as you against some of the best in the county, that's your first real test. And it's something that I think is so good for your mentality as a human being, to build up that, again, resiliency to be better than those people, to try and improve in a quite artificial scenario. If anyone's ever gone through a trial process at sports level, it's an incredibly surreal situation. You get placed in a room of testosterone-filled teenagers who are just ready to lump 7 bells of what out of each other on the rugby pitch. No one's speaking to each other. Everyone's sitting there with their head down, trying to avoid eye contact any opportunity, before we eventually get out on the rugby pitch and start tackling each other in the mud. To park all of that awkwardness and all of those nerves that you feel during a trials period to one side is an incredibly challenging thing to do. But at the same time, when it comes to actual rugby, you need to develop friendships incredibly quickly. So that's something that I also had to develop my skills and be able to talk to people and develop those relationships very quickly. That's something that I had to develop too. So that's another skill that I kind of picked up through sport, is that, sometimes you're going to be thrust into uncomfortable situations. I know that I've been in some in, a work environment too, where you're on a particular training course and you might be put into an artificial environment. But in that moment, you've got to kind of park that awkwardness to one side and let's just get on with it. Let's pretend like we're great friends and let's crack on, because at the end of the day, that's how you develop, that's how you grow as a person. And in that individual scenario where you're in a trial, you're in a test, you don't have time to have any hang-ups or be awkward with people. You've got a job to do, so let's crack on. Let's speak to each other, and at an early age, especially when you're an awkward teenager, it's a really important thing to do. I was then lucky enough to be picked up by Saracens at one of the trial days that I was with Hertfordshire on. One of the most menacing coaches that I've ever experienced playing under, and one day it's my intention to kind of talk through at more length my rugby career from a Saracens academy point of view, and maybe kind of telling the experiences that I went through, because I think I'd love to share those stories. But he picked me up to one side and he said, I'd really love for you to come and train with the Saracens guys over summer. Would you be keen? I said, of course, yes, I would. I would love to. And that for me was the real first taste of the big time, and not the big time in the traditional sense where, you've made it. But for me, that was like, okay, well, I can do this now. I've got a real opportunity to go and test my skills in an arena where there's going to be great coaching. It's going to be a pressured environment. It's also a very humbling one when you're young and you realise you're actually not as good as you think you are. That summer, I was absolutely beaten up by 18-year-olds who've been training in the academy for a long time, boxing against people that were far bigger than I was and training in a really difficult environment. But it was something that, again, is a massive lesson for me because, it's something that you, when you're going through life, no matter how good you think you are, there's always someone that thinks that they can do it better or are doing it better. So you got to out compete. You got to keep working, and that's something that I'm starting to realize more and more as I go along, especially from a professional standpoint, from my job, and also from rugby as well. I definitely don't claim to have all the answers when it comes to rugby. I'm still developing my craft. I think it's so important that we never stop developing, and especially from a professional sense as well, honing skills and always kind of looking to be better. But that's something that I think sport brings you, is that always pursuit of being better. Knowing at the end of the day that you as a person, that is enough. But when you're looking to develop your skills and your craft, you can always be better. And I think that's such a fantastic thing because it always strives. It means we never sit on our laurels. We never are satisfied with just enough, and we can really test what our true capabilities really are. That's a really exciting thing for me. Another side to sport, especially to rugby, is initiations. And I've been on a few. I'm not going to mention all of them, but I will mention my first one. I was playing for my school first team at the age of 16, and we just lost a game in the Daily Mail Cup, which is a national cup in England, extremely coveted, and it was something that we were all disappointed by. But we had an awards dinner to get to, so we weren't going to let that get in the way of us having a good old session. I had actually not drunk that much, and I know some of you will be surprised to hear that, but yeah, 16-year-old me was a little bit of a virgin when it came to drinking. So basically that night, I was massively stitched up. I was fed cider upon cider by the sixth formers who thought it was funny that when I got up to accept my award for Young Player of the Year, when I was asked to make a speech, I slurred my words, not just in front of the team, not just in front of the parents, but in front of the headmaster, the vice principal, and all those important people. So I was royally stitched up, and it was a big, humbling experience. It didn't stop there, however, as some of my teammates asked, "We're going to a party now. Would you like to come?" 16-year-old James thought, sixth form party in a tux, yeah, let's go for it. I was then stitched up further and got duped into more drinking games, forfeits. I was bundled into the back of a cab at some point that night, I'm pretty sure, resulting in me throwing up a lot and having to be hosed off by my parents in a tuxedo. Yeah, not a great look. And you can imagine the reaction from all my family the next morning when I crawled down the stairs and went to face them. Yeah, it wasn't a good one. The thing is, though, the night was meant in good jest. And I know that was just part of the camaraderie. Something that I learned from that night is, one, don't try and outdrink yourself. And two, sport is about bringing people, again, closer together, forming bonds, friendships, mucking about, and just having a good time. And it's something, again, despite that being a negative experience on the night, it's something I look back on with extreme fondness, and that my teammates were only trying to make me feel like more part of the team. In more recent times, I joined Loughborough University straight after school. I had a very mixed relationship with rugby at Loughborough University. It was straight after that I'd been released by Saracens, and it was something that left a very sour taste in my mouth around the sport of rugby. For a while, I fell out of love with the sport, and I kind of drifted away for a little while. I think it was something that was necessary in my development journey for me to kind of have a breakaway after spending so much time committed to the sport and sacrificing a lot of other things. So I think it was time for me to have some other experiences. But Loughborough Rugby also taught me that even if you have had fantastic experiences and come from a privileged place in terms of where I've played rugby, there are also many people from all corners of the country coming to the same place for the same ambition to pursue rugby and to compete. I thought that, honestly, I would turn up to Loughborough and be one of the best there. That was very much not the case. I think that demotivated me. And it also taught me a lesson in hindsight that I should have been more committed. It's something that if I kept trying, if I kept pursuing my dream, that I might have been able to speed up where I am in my career today. So from Loughborough, I learned that really not to give up. And if you do, then it's going to put obstacles in the way in future. And again, it was another fantastic lesson for me to go through and something that sports taught me. Loughborough did give me some fantastic experiences as well. University rugby is again an amazing thing to be part of. It brings you closer with students, and when you're first starting off at university, you really have no idea which way's up, or at least I didn't. And to be part of a rugby society or be part of the rugby club where we could all bond over something common, then it's a great way to make friends in what can be deemed as quite a lonely place at times, if especially if you don't meet people straight away. So for that, I'm extremely grateful for Loughborough, what it gave me, and some of the experiences, some of the away days as well, and the places that I got to go to through rugby. Now I live in Bishop Stortford. That's where I play my rugby. And honestly, when I came back to the rugby club, it felt like coming home. It's massively reignited my passion for rugby. I love the camaraderie that we all share in the club. I love the fact that we have players from all over the world coming to the rugby club, and we can share experiences about past times where we've played sport, past life experiences. We learn from each other. You know, after games, we drink together, we have great times, we share experiences, and through consistent work and through training together, you develop bonds, and that culminates in a match day. And some of those times are some of the most testing that you'll experience as a human being. You really have to reach into the depths of your resilience and your soul, I suppose, to pull out great performances at times. Rugby can be an extremely physically and mentally demanding game. But those are the times that tie you closer together with those around you. And it gives you, again, a sense of belonging, a sense of togetherness, and great friendships that lead to great experiences. So that for me is why sport is so important. And when I lose a game of rugby, or if I was to come off the pitch having not had a desirable result, and someone was to say it's just a game, then it struggles to resonate because it's so much more than that for me. It's something that I sink a lot of emotion into. It's something that I rely on for an outlet. It's something that's been taken away over the last 12 months due to COVID. It's something that you can allow yourself to release frustration. It's something that teaches us lessons. It's a place where we're put in adverse situations and have to find a way out. All of these skills massively important to us as human beings and also on a life level. So to those who have dared to utter the phrase, it's just a game, I do challenge you, and I definitely disagree with you. For all the reasons that I've mentioned in today's podcast, I really do hope that you've enjoyed it. I know it's something that's a little bit different to last week. And to be honest, this podcast isn't going to follow a particular structure week on week. I can see it being a bit different. It's going to evolve. It's going to change. It's going to sometimes call on personal experiences. Sometimes there'll be something completely different. I am very compelled at some point to do a whole podcast on honey badgers because I love them and they are awesome. But yeah, I really do hope that this struck a chord. And I'm sure that there would have been some nodding heads and some shaking heads. And I absolutely welcome any comments, any feedback that you may have. We're now on Instagram, so at Thacker Sunday Hangover on Instagram, if you'd like to join in the conversation. And I do welcome any kind of comments. And if you want to talk to me about anything that I've talked about today, then DMs are always open. Just before I sign off, it's an extremely challenging situation at the moment that we all find ourselves in. I hope that we're coming to the end of lockdown soon in the UK. I know that other countries are out already or in a different scenario, but in the UK, I know that everyone's really struggling with lockdown 3.0. It's times like these, now more than ever, to reach out to our friends, to check in, to make sure that they're okay. And, not necessarily, hi, you're right, mate, and kind of that a little bit superficial stuff at times, but the real, how are you really? And I know that it could be deemed as a little bit cliche, and I'm sure that we've all heard the general rhetoric, but it's really important to show that we care, and to check in on our friends. So if I can make one plea, is to go in and check on someone today after this podcast. And I really do hope you have a fantastic rest of the day whenever you are listening to this. Thank you ever so much for listening, and I will see you next time.